Warning, before watching this video, make sure you have watched Season 2 of the Sonic CD Comparison Series on this channel alongside Episode 1 of the Passing Comparison Series. If you have not watched these thus far, you are going to be spoiled of past results. I'll give you 10 seconds to leave the video. Alright, with that out the way, let's get back to the video. Hello everybody, this is Hypersonic and welcome back to the Sonic CD Passing Comparison Series, Episode 2, Collision Chaos Past. In the previous video, the US soundtrack won in Punchy Panic Pass, which, regardless of whether or not it was against the Fighting Prototype or the Japanese version, it would have been in both. Albeit, it would have been closer in the Fighting Prototype, but because of rules, it was just never meant to be. In today's video, we will go to Collision Chaos Pass. One thing to note before entering the level is that, if you haven't noticed, there is a time stone right by the US soundtrack's victory in Punchy Panic. The time zones in this series represent points. A time stone will be rewarded to any soundtrack that wins any of the rounds. And since there are 7 time zones, it is very convenient. And of course, the color of the time zone corresponds to the order they're in. For example, the green time zone is the first time zone you can get, and that's the one that's going to be for Punchy Panic. And I believe in this level, the time stone is purple? I have to do my research on that one. But you'll see what color it will be by the end of this video. But with that aside, let's go to the next level, or should I say the next round. Collision Chaos Past. Welcome to Collision Chaos Past. It looks like a Jurassic Marsh. It's very prehistoric. It looks like a place where you could see a few dinosaurs roaming. It looks like a place where you can see some cavemen, and it seems to be that a casino is in construction. Another thing that's very odd about Collision Chaos Pass is that there's a ground on the ceiling. Now, I don't know if that's really just a graphical error because I can't see how the sky can have the ground unless the sky represents Earth, but that can't be the case because it's literally the same as the ground on the ground. So that was always one thing about Collision Chaos that always weirded me out. I don't know if that's really an error or not. I personally count it as an error because it makes literally no sense. But let's just move on from that. Round 2, Collision Chaos Pass. Here's the Japanese version. And now for the American version. The Japanese version of Collision Chaos Past is very prehistoric off the bat, just like in Punchy Panic. It fits the stage, once again it fits the time zone. It also fits that sunset that the stage is set in. I think that's really fitting, especially for that part later on in the story, which really fits that sunset vibe that the stage has. The song is overall really catchy. I do like the percussion. Overall, I would say this is a good track, and I do like this one better than Punchy Panic Past Japanese soundtrack. So you do have a good chance here with the Japanese soundtrack being able to win a round. Its first ever round win in the series so far. The American version, as far as strengths go, I think it has, once again, it has a good melody. It's based off of the present theme of Collision Chaos US, which, to my surprise, I'm actually seeing quite a lot of people say it's one of the better US tracks out there, because that was definitely not the case, not even like 5 years ago. And I have no influence on that. Yeah, I do think it's a good thing that's based off of the present theme of the American soundtrack for Collision Chaos and the past theme, because as you guys already know, out of the 3 Collision Chaos themes, excluding the past, that was my favorite by far, and it was even able to make a surprisingly close round in Season 2. It did lose, but it was surprisingly close. And just like the Japanese version, it obviously fits the mood of the stage. It also fits the fact that something is being built there, which is a casino, obviously. Now, does it fit the sunset vibe? No, not as much, but it does fit the time zone generally. And I also think the melody is catchy as well. I also like the vocals in the background too. I like that. It's a really well-made track that KMS has made. Now, as far as weaknesses go, I think the Japanese version of Collision Chaos Past, while it isn't as boring as Punchy Panic Past in the Japanese soundtrack, I do think it is kind of a bit uninteresting and boring at some parts. This is really the only Collision Chaos track in the Japanese soundtrack that I can't say is like one of the best songs in the entire game. It sticks out that badly. But yeah, the Japanese version is kind of a bit boring at some parts. But so is the American version. Some parts toward the middle of it is just kind of a bit boring. But I do think overall it is a good melody. And contrary to popular belief, I don't think American Collision Chaos is really all that boring. It's interesting music, but it just doesn't hit as well as the Japanese version of Collision Chaos, which so far the American soundtrack has never made a single win in Collision Chaos. Now, as for deciding which track is better, it really comes down to a whole lot, because this is the first round so far in the past comparison series that is actually within a point. And this round has consistently been within a point. So, here's going to be the rundown. We're going to be looking back at how much they fit, the instrumentation, the execution. So, let's go with the fitting. I do think both tracks fit the level. They fit the level very well. The Japanese version fits that sunset the most of all the parts of the level. I also think it fits the colors of the level too. The American version, while it doesn't fit the colors of the level so much, I do think it fits the past theme time zone. It also fits the fact that there's a casino being built there, as you can tell with the vocals and whatnot. Now, as for melody, I do think it's very close on melody, but I do typically revere the US version's melody a bit more than the Japanese version. And as for execution of the instruments, I do think the US version has those catchy drums in the background. I really like those catchy drums. And the fact that this track, for once, the only Collision Chaos American track that doesn't have bass in one ear and melody in the other, that is a huge prop to the American soundtrack. And I gotta say, that's gotta be one of the biggest, if not the biggest reason for why this round is so close. Because if Collision Chaos Present US wasn't built that way with melody in one ear and, bass in the other, you probably would have been seeing a 17-15 result in Season 2 instead of a 16-16 tie as of now. So to recap, the US version has a small lead in fitting. It has a very tight lead in melody, which could honestly go either way. Honestly, when it comes to melody, it's really close, and it really does swing. But really, I don't really know. It really depends on how it goes with melody, because they both have good melodies. And as for execution, or maybe catchiness, the US version is typically more catchy than the Japanese soundtrack here for me. And with that being said, I think we do have a winner. Round 2, Collision Chaos Past goes to the American soundtrack. What you have just witnessed was a very historical moment for the American soundtrack. As of now, up to now, the US soundtrack has never made a single win in Collision Chaos. The closest it's ever been to that was the present theme in Season 2, which was very unprecedented that it got that close. And another thing I do want to note about the US soundtrack's win here, I think the reason why it did win here is also the fact that Collision Chaos Past Japanese soundtrack is my least favorite of the 4 Japanese Collision Chaos themes. It underperforms the other 3 tracks by about a point or so. Well, not a point or so, but just about a point, if not a little bit less or a little bit more. And that definitely helped the US soundtrack with its win there. I'm pretty sure if Collision Chaos Past Japanese soundtrack underperformed by like half a point, I'm pretty sure the US soundtrack would have a really hard time winning this one. But with that historical feat, again, that's really historical. You just would never think that would happen, but back to the world map. Future. Now, as you can see, the US soundtrack has 2 rounds so far to the Japanese soundtrack's 0. It's not even on the board. And it looks like the US soundtrack is cruising for an easy win in the past games. But then again, things are very early. You have 5 rounds left, and you could never know. You never know if the Japanese soundtrack can make a late game boost and end up being the US soundtrack, or the US soundtrack outright beats the Japanese soundtrack. It is very unknown on who wins this entire series. It really is unknown. But I will see you guys, I think, next week for the next video. I'm about to see when these videos are going to be coming up, but if so, next week, probably in July. I'm still thinking about how I'm going to actually get these videos out, but I will see you guys later with Episode 3, Title Tempest Past, in the Past Team Comparison series. Goodbye, and God bless you.